Okay, good morning. This is the time where we turn the show over to you to get your inputs, your thoughts, your ideas, and also about what your organization and community is doing that we want to take account of here. We have 4 topics, of which when you registered, you indicated which ones that you'd be interested in joining. We have 4 tables, each of the corners of the room where this will take place. The purpose, or the 5 aims we have for these discussions is 1, to share what your organization is doing in regard to the topic, to discuss current county climate change programs and policies. 3, to identify and suggest what we should be doing or what you think we should be doing, more of, less of, or just differently. 4, to identify the priorities that should be noted, including in the outcome document that we're going to present on September 12th in the follow-up. And finally, to discuss whether Montgomery County should be taking up any of the global climate action summit challenges that are related to your topic. So again, as when you registered, you identified which of these topics you wanted to join. There's a color for each one. We invite you to come to those tables after I finish talking. And so you'll be meet at these round tables. There's a poster by each table that identifies the group. And I'm going to introduce the facilitators for each of these. Oh, who am I? Oh, I'm Jeffrey Barber. I'm president of the Integrated Strategies Forum, and we're one of the organizers here. Forgot about that. So facilitating the discussion on sustainable communities is Danielle Meaty. This will be over here. It's the orange color. Danielle is a climate scientist with expertise on the impacts of pollution on climate and strategies for mitigating and reversing climate change. Her passion is about making science accessible and relevant to everyone. And she's recently a candidate. She was recently a candidate for the Montgomery County Council at Large and lives in Silver Spring with her husband and 2 kids. Facilitating land and ocean stewardship is Leah Haygood. And this will be over at this table over here, the yellow color. Leah is founder and president of Buzzword, Inc. and has more than 25 years of experience in the environmental, sustainability, and corporate responsibility fields. She's led corporate responsibility strategy, disclosure, and communication projects for major U.S. and international companies, including Ford, PwC, Nike, and JP Morgan Chase. Leah was founder of Green Wheaton and serves as vice chair of One Montgomery Green. Okay. Facilitating healthy energy systems is Joelle Novi. Joelle directs Interfaith Power and Light in D.C., Maryland, and North Virginia, which supports congregations of all faith traditions across Maryland and the D.C. metro area in responding to climate change, including support for the emergent Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, MC-FACS. Any members of MC-FACS here? Yeah, good. Okay, and she lives in Eastern Village co-housing in South Silver Spring. And this is at the blue color at that table over there. And then finally, we've combined 2 of the global climate themes on inclusive growth and on transformative investment into a topic, climate change economics. And we have 2 facilitators here, Tom Deo and Dave Feldman. Tom is the Chief Executive Officer of the Montgomery County Green Bank. He has over 30 years of experience in the for-profit and nonprofit sectors in financing and investment, technical assistance, knowledge building and grant making, and housing and community development and green programs. The Green Bank's mission is to bring greater access to clean energy and energy efficiency financing for households, businesses, and institutions in Montgomery County. Dave Feldman has been the CEO of Livability Project since incorporation as a Maryland company in 2007. Dave's ongoing work at Livability Project has been the creation of the Livability Framework, which is a model that can help communities achieve their sustainability goals. Dave's also the director of the Center for Sustainability Solutions at Green America. So, thanks to our facilitators, each small group will also have a rapporteur to take notes, including my wife and partner, Karen. Okay, so here's the basic rules. So we have until 11 a.m. to highlight the programs, policies, concerns, approaches, and all those things that you think should be priorities for the county. In case you come up with an idea for the program afterwards that you didn't manage to get in, we had these sticky notes to put on the posters there. So you have plenty of opportunities to get those ideas in there. And at 11, so there'll be a break after that. At 11:15, we will regroup and hear report backs from the four groups. One final rule is respect your co-discussants. Respect your neighbor. Let them have a chance, let everybody have a chance to get your ideas in. We aren't trying to find one solution for all this. It's going to be a lot of solutions, a lot of different ideas, and we all need to be able to listen to each other if we're going to get any of this done. So take your chair, the tables, and let's get started.
Thanks so much for coming today. I'm really excited that we're doing this. I'm very excited about just the leadership and energy that Montgomery County has really put into this. But to go any further, it's really now up to us, right? There's only so much that our leaders can decide ahead of time, and then it's now for people in the community to really fill out the plan and talk about what it is that we want to see. So that's why it's really great we're here, and it's great you're all here on a Tuesday morning, because I know it's not always easy to make time, so it's great. As I mentioned, my name is Danielle Meaty. My background is in climate science. I've been working on the policy area. I was in graduate school, and before, so for about 25 years. Ever since I read Earth in the Balance, years before Inconvenient Truth. And my interest has always been on solutions. So I went straight from the lab to NOAA, which is how I ended up here in Silver Spring. So really, what I'm so passionate about, like I said in the intro, is making sure that the science and the solutions really are accessible.
Lewis Rome, legislative aide to Council Member Tom Hucker, who sits on the transportation.
I was struck by the county government and the city government folks. Like, it sounds like things around procurement, thinking about the county's own buildings, or the city's own buildings, and own fleets, and own street lights. Like, I was happy to hear about that. I don't know so much about that. It sounds like at least those at the table are doing good work there. So that's cool.
I'll add to that the one item that's really helping not us, but also the private sector is the increased amount of financing resources available. When I started in the county 13 years ago, it was almost impossible for us to do major retrofits to our buildings without affecting other county needs, pop cars, school books, whatever that may be. Now we can actually take the energy savings and use that as a financial guarantee against the retrofits we're making in our facilities and our streetlights. So we're able to do those things, truly pulling the benefit in with no real net cost impact to the taxpayer, which is fantastic.
It's become more affordable than it was a number of years ago for people to use this option of using 100% renewable energy, whether it's with us or through some other source. So I'm just really encouraged by how much interest there is.
In the county as well. I'm a friend of Sligo Creek. And I have done.
We remodeled a house and put in the first gray water system in the county, and the county said, what the hell is a gray water system? They didn't have any idea. So I've been involved in climate, environmental issues for many, many years. I was a co-founder of Elders Climate Action, and obviously I'm involved in this field. I would say one of the things that we've done recently, since we all know that we need to act locally, because up there ain't doing much good.
On what can agriculture do to sequester carbon? What can
Investing in energy efficiency, renewable energy, clean energy in the county, right? You have, on the other side of the spectrum, you've got grants in which money goes out, and it goes out as, funds to households or businesses to undertake that, and it's money that goes out and doesn't come back. And that's one way of motivating that work. The other is to sort of say, okay, and there's a limited source of capital that can go into that. The Green Bank was designed to say, no, okay, let's take a certain amount of capital and use that in partnership with the private capital market to bring their more infinite amount of capital into the county and invest in energy efficiency and renewable energy projects and properties, both residential and commercial, throughout the county. So the county assigned $14 million from the Pepco Exelon merger to the Green Bank to use that in its relationships with other private capital and bring their larger amounts of capital in, right? So our target is at least to make that 5 times its size. So go from 14 million to 75 million of actual resources that can be brought into the county. Virginia to discuss how local green banks could actually work, writ large. So took the progressive work of Montgomery County Green Bank to sell it to a larger constituency. And so we've done that. We're trying to share that.
Shift towards less carbon emissions. And one of the big barriers to that, it seems, is charging stations for electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And that seems to me a place where private sector or public-private partnerships could come in. Any ideas on where that's going?
All right, as we continue this program, I have Joyce Briner from Poolsville Green. Yeah.
Hi, welcome back. I hope you had a good break. Hi, I'm Joyce Briner, Executive Director of Poolsville Green. We're a small nonprofit in the western part of the county, and we work to educate the community on sustainable living practices. That, for us, manifests itself a lot in talking about one thing in particular, electric cars. I want you to note this on your calendar. September 15th, we have the largest electric vehicle show on the East Coast. We already have 100 vehicles signed up. So it's a huge event in collaboration with the community event of Poolsville Day. So there's a lot of activity happening out there, and we hope to see you out there learning more about electric vehicles. Today we've had several rich discussions about the multitudes of issues that we know need to be addressed if we are to successfully deal with climate change and do our parts locally to preserve and protect a healthy global environment. Every voice is important in finding the solutions we need and implementing them. I'd like to give you an idea of how we will use today's program to help move the conversation forward in Montgomery County. We envision creating an outcome document that captures the issues and concerns discussed today, which we will share in a public briefing with county leaders during the week of Global Climate Action Summit on September 12th. That's a couple days before the electric car show, at the county council offices at 6 p.m. For those of you who have already registered for the 12th, you will receive an Eventbrite confirmation. Please take a moment to confirm. You can also go to, and you might want to write this down, www.mocgas.eventbrite.com. Objectives of the outcome document: 1, to provide a list of local resource organizations and experts on climate change. 2, to capture the concerns, suggestions, and priorities for addressing climate change locally as identified by today's participants and those who wish to add their comments during the comment period. 3, to encourage Montgomery County leaders to find a way to keep county residents informed and engaged as valuable resources themselves in an effort to address climate change. Our first step is to collect the repertoire notes from each small group and put them into a document that we will share online. These draft notes will be available online from the 18th through the 24th for public comment. Go to the onemontgomerygreen.org website under Climate Summit. We also invite those interested to join an informal group for each of the thematic topics discussed today to review what participants have highlighted so far and to make additions. If we can identify point persons for each small group today, we will invite them to join us on a conference call in the last week of August that folks here today and others interested persons can join. Show of hands for those who might like to be point persons on the thematic topics. Is anybody recording that?
Only Randall gets to do it all?
And we have another one here, Wendy. Okay. Some folks want to think about it, you can email One Montgomery Green. Thank you for all for volunteering to keep this discussion moving forward. After collecting all the input by the end of August, the 3 organizations hosting these affiliate events will be prepared to document for public release on September 12th. We invite everyone to attend on the 12th and help get the word out to media and others. We will update you on the program on the 12th in advance. This has been a great opportunity to meet all of you, some friendly faces I recognize, and I'm glad I'm meeting more today. We are lucky to have so many great human resources to address this challenge, and we hope to continue working with you in the future. Laura will be happy to answer any questions you might have about the follow-up after today's programming concludes. And I'll turn it back over to Wendy.
So this is the fun part. So you guys have already identified in each of your groups sort of the one rapporteur, reporter, note taker, whatever you want to call it, to give kind of a quick, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes for each group. So she's like, that's not enough time, right? Jonathan, are you going to start? And come on up. And what was your topic? Sustainable communities? Beautiful.
Great.
3 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. So Danielle Meaty led us first actually to identify the range of communities. And the range of communities come from neighborhood to schools to PTAs to homeowners to renters to virtual communities to watersheds to global communities. And these are all useful to keep in mind as we try to plan for steps that we can take, both for education and also to try to scale up programs that we want to. We talked about zero food waste as being one of the challenge items. And this has many levels. One is to try to promote composting more, but another is to spread the knowledge of groups like Hungry Harvest that already do serious food recovery and gleaning. On the food side, with rejuvenated agriculture, Yard Share is a program that we will want to try to use to get more grass to be converted to growing. We talked actually a lot about transportation, and a good example of this is that we had a transportation representative who told us about what the county is already doing for carpooling. Then the suggestion to add on to that is to press new developments to include carpooling items. On transportation, we now have in the community a lot of road resurfacing that WSC has done after their infrastructure work. But in any of those projects, did we take advantage of that to do any infrastructure improvements with landscape architecture, plantings or stormwater programs? So that's something that we could do more of. I think the last thing that I wanted to point to are things that I would say are more along the lines of themes of the cultural change that we have to try to do to engage more aspects of the community in these sustainable practices. The one level of that, as an example, is that we talk about wanting to do more on the recycling, like kitchen composting, and yet there are vast swaths of businesses and apartments that still don't do any kind of recycling. Another strand of that was that several people mentioned is the notion of not only reuse but refuse. And this is a whole issue of trying to get away from single-serve uses of plastics. So these are all strands of what we discussed, and I'll more fully put these notes together for One Montgomery Green. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to go around the room. So I guess that is, what was that, healthy energy? Oh, good. All right. Come on. So give the topic and your name.
Yeah, my name is, can you hear me out there? My name is Jim Driscoll. I'm with the Climate Mobilization. We're the group who got the resolution passed that set the goal that we're all bragging about here today. I was told we should claim some credit for that since we worked real hard on it. And just along that line, we get that by making we got there by making a radical demand. So I just want to get clear at the beginning. Montgomery County may be leading, but we're all real far behind. We undercount the amount of emissions that we make. We undercount by methane. We use the 100-year instead of 20-year. We don't deal with personal consumption at all. The gains that we hear talked about by the county do not refer to reductions in energy use. The energy use is about flat. The greenhouse gains that we've made are because the grid got cleaner because of the decline of the coal industry. So I want to start with one of the last. So I mean, we have to put this in. And the things that we've done are very small. They're like baby steps. The best we've done is with the county operations, and that's only 5% of the total emissions for the whole county. So we can't go into this thinking about, oh, we're doing well and we need to just tweak what we're doing. So at the end, Michael Friedman from Sierra said, okay, what's the goal? How do we get to this lofty goal that I shouldn't give her a blank. Somebody said, we have to get to the goal, we have to have benchmarks, we have to have accountability for what would it really take to get to 80% by 2027, and how do we check ourselves, measure the greenhouse gases, measure the cost of each program, and we have some data there to work with. We're at the Climate Mobilization, we're trying to get policy groups to meet this fall. If anybody's interested in working with us, please come up to me. We need them on buildings, transportation, renewable energy, and on drawdown, because if we just stop the emissions, we die from what's already up there. So we have to draw down what's already in by using primarily regenerative agriculture. So the things moving from the big picture, we talked about the need to have central coordination of the grassroots groups that exist in Montgomery County. One specific thing around the idea of a vendor-neutral way to assist small commercial and nonprofit groups in upgrading their energy use. We have to figure out how to. If you glance around the room, you'll notice that there aren't quite enough here to win any elections or to make the county do much of anything, right? So the biggest challenge is how do we get more people involved? And how do we not replicate the white, middle-class, middle-aged kind of composition that we generally are? Doesn't mean you have to count noses at who's in the room, but you have to say, are we in touch with the African heritage community, with the Latino community, with low-income communities? In particular, the summit is being protested by the Climate Justice Alliance, which is the network of environmental justice groups of color in the United States. They're opposed to it because they're advocating market-based solutions only, and historically those have cut against communities of color, low-income people, nations of color around the world. One of the things we talked about was the campaign now in Montgomery, in Maryland, to stop new gas pipelines. And in general, how do we oppose new fossil fuel infrastructure? And in Montgomery County right now, that means connecting the dots, for example, to all the, we estimate at the mobilization that more than half of our emissions here come from methane. Okay, and that's from natural gas heating houses primarily. And I bring that up because this summit is being run by Jerry Brown, who's also being protested by 350 groups around the country, because under his administration they've approved 20,000 new gas and oil wells. So he's kind of, anyhow. And so we want to make sure that message opposed to fossil fuel infrastructure is carried forward. With respect to the environmental vehicle challenge, we supported the environmental vehicle challenge, since a lot of us are working on that, our organization, Poolsville Green, and others. So, thank you.
All right, so I was going this way, right? So that is land ocean stewardship. Oh, Laura.
Thank you. Okay. We had a very rich conversation this morning, and one of the things that I just wanted to say is that we have so many amazing resources in this county. Toxicologists, ethnobotanists, ecologists. We have the people to solve this problem that make our contribution in this county. So that said, I'm going to just whip through some of the topics that we discussed this morning. And I know that I'm not repeating every single thing, but we will get it down in the notes and to share so that it's publicly available to you to comment on, okay? All right, so one of the things, the very first thing that we started talking about was the fact that we need much more, after our introductions, was much more awareness, education on climate change and for our diverse communities in Montgomery County. Everyone feels the impetus to make sure that we're including more people in that conversation. We wanted to talk about county programming for landscapers. And mind you, because we were land and ocean stewardship, we were trying to focus mainly on land policy and on water protection, watershed protection and stewardship. Okay, we talked about cross-agency efforts to ensure that we're not losing the benefits of some activities that are already underway, like people who have community gardens that then the mowers from the county come along and throw their clippings into the gardens and make it a mess and we have to weed it out. So coordination among our agencies to make sure that we're getting the maximum benefit from programs. We talked a lot about trim and yard waste and live plants on the surfaces being a much more useful way to sequester carbon. Looking at all the multitude of ways, not only in the ag reserve and working with farmers, but also in our yards and our playgrounds and our public areas. We talked about planting more native trees. As you saw in the climate mobilization report, there's a lot about tree cover for the county. We wanted to focus on native trees and planting in newly developed sites and avoiding disrupting old established neighborhoods when that's not appropriate. We talked about encouraging composting at multiple levels, from the business community to the individual and the family unit. We said that we're way past models now. communities like Portland, Boulder, they're already doing this. We need to not be in model proof of concept stage anymore. It needs to be ramped up in Montgomery County. We talked about having a composting facility and having that conversation about where it will be, because we often say that we want all these things, but maybe not next to my house. So there was some suggestion that maybe we look at the incinerator site in Up County where there's concerns about changing out the incinerator, and see if we can't do more to encourage a facility for food waste and yard waste combined up there. That's a further thing to be explored. We talked about bottle deposits as being a possibility, working in other communities to get the garbage out of our streams. We talked about our county's stream restoration programs being good starts and slowing stormwater. We need to do more to work with farmers on regenerative agriculture. We also talked about legislation to ban public funding for synthetic playing fields that makes artificial covering more cost-effective artificially than natural covering for playing fields. We discussed briefly our 30 by 30 challenge that Global Climate Action Summit issued, and there was general support for it, for sequestering 30% of our carbon emissions in the ground by 2030. So that we understood and expect that there are timelines for how we get to these goals, that we need benchmarks, we need an incremental process to help the county achieve that, and our group really wanted to be a part of that conversation going forward. We want to find a way to do that, so it's not just us looking at county reports, but being part of helping generate the next steps to actually achieving these great ideas. All right. Okay, and last, climate economics. Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Onthank from the Integrative Strategies Forum. We're one of the organizers. Our group, I'm going to just do some areas that we touched upon. Like every other group, we talked about we need to greater diversity in this subject. Within the county, we need greater participation from Montgomery County residents and businesses and the community stakeholders. Bill McKibben said we need to mobilize like we did for World War II, and we especially need to do this in terms of communication. We need to talk about carbon, but also methane. We need to rebrand words and concepts that don't really have traction now. We need to talk about the cost of inaction. We need to also go beyond simply talking about climate change and environmental issues. Are people having trouble hearing me? Which one of these is we? This one. Okay, is this better? Okay. We need to, we have our own share of deniers and climate skeptics, and we also have to talk to those who just simply are not talking about climate change in our county. We need to scale up to a broader audience and talk about how climate change affects public health issues, harm to infrastructure, economic harm, food and agriculture. We need to modify the language to a more personal level, and so we could better influence the political will. We need to fight against impositions of pipelines, widening of 495, support electric buses that may be expensive in the short term, but are much more economically efficient, not to mention energy efficient in the long term. We talked about, obviously, financing and taxes. This was the climate change economics group. And so we talked about carbon tax, energy tax, different types of bond, public procurement. There's how there's not a significant divestment from Montgomery County concerning carbon investments. We need to draw in more capital, particularly private capital, to fund this. And so we need to identify different strategies to do that. We also spoke about green jobs in terms of there's agricultural, green buildings, incubators, composting, food waste. There's a lot of government support, and for example, education and training, but we need the private sector to actually create the jobs. We can use public procurement that can help create jobs, but we have to keep in mind these jobs need to be viable financially. We don't want to create jobs that are minimum wage. We need to be able to have people survive on these jobs. We spoke a little bit of the circular economy as another way. We spoke a lot about agriculture, how we need to protect our own gem, the agricultural reserve, which absorbs water, benefits the local economy, provides local food. Regenerative agriculture draws down CO2 out of the atmosphere. And we ended with that, Montgomery County was seeking sort of a homemade climate summit, which this is sort of doing. And how can we keep this effort going? We don't want to end just with a report. One thing, there'll be on September 25th, I think, the council will be discussing its own report, and we should be there, show support for it. We should connect with other counties, and again with communities, stakeholders more broadly, and we should find ways to keep the energy in this room going and spread it out. And that's it. Oh.
All right, so thank you for those rapporteurs. I just love using that word. For that, I heard a lot of good words, a lot of good things, funding strategies, personal involvement, community, central coordination. I heard that a couple of times, sort of continuing this conversation, education, diversity, very, very exciting. So before I let you go, I want to recognize Laura and Jeanette. Laura Barnett's my operations manager who makes my life so much easier, but this was really her baby. I was just there, I just did what she told me, but I really want to give her a big hand for all she did putting this together. And Jeanette, oh, there you go, my graphics person who does the beautiful things like this. She was the one that had to follow the rules that the Climate Summit had for us as an affiliate event. She kept the colors together, so thank you so much for all of your input. I also want to recognize some of my OMG board members. I see Kathy, who was out there, Leah, Ed, I know you were around here somewhere. Did I lose you? Oop, there you go. Is that? Yes, okay, so I got my board members. And for those of us who were sponsors of this, make sure you come up here so we can have a big picture at the end. Joyce, Karen, Jeff. Oh, and how can I forget our newest volunteer, who she is the volunteer extraordinaire for out there keeping out, making sure you guys were all signed up. We had a total of 84. Which was way more than I anticipated. I'm so excited you guys were here. So I want to also make sure, give everybody a moment. If there are any other climate events happening in the next month, I know the Rise for Climate is coming up on September 9th. Is there anything else that you guys want to, okay, Dave?
There's a Green Jobs Fair, Leadership and Energy.
Ooh, right.
Thursday night, partnering with the Council of Government.
Oh, great, and that is this coming Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
lercpa.org.
Right, and I think we have that on our calendar, Jeanette. Do we have that on? I think that was the one Janine sent. Janine Fennell, leaders. I think it is. If not, we'll make sure it is on our calendar after this afternoon. Any other events coming up? Okay. So before I let you guys go, I want to. Oh, yes. One more. Cool. Thank you so much. And we will do our best to try and put all of this, our calendar on the One Montgomery Green website is actually, we try and put in everything that's going on, not just our events. We want the community to be involved. I want to make sure you guys, we have bags that were donated from, I was just at a women's conference earlier this month, actually last week, last Thursday. They had some extra bags and they said, Wendy, aren't you going to an event? I said, yes. So please take a bag. Please don't make me come back with them. But before you do, would you look in the bag? Somebody grabbed a bag and put their coat in it, and then it disappeared. So if you can look before you walk that you don't have a jacket that is not yours. If you do, bring it to us. We have her name, and we'll make sure we get it. Do I have other climate events? I think that's it. Wait. Oh, I did thank Julio earlier, but let me thank him again. Thank you so much from Hucker's office for putting this together. So Karen, Jeff, oh, I see one more, yes. Is that parking day? Parking day is also on the 21st. Right, okay. That was a good one. I knew there was one, but we do have that on the website. All right, so I'm only a minute or two over my time. I'm very proud of myself. I know it was all me who did that. So thank you guys for coming. I really encourage you guys to continue this conversation. Just don't stop here. Continue getting involved. Continue talking to the people you met today. And whatever we can at One Montgomery Green do to help you facilitate that, we are happy to do it. So thank you again. Grab some more snacks, and we will see you next time on the 12th, I hope.